From IBMer to Amazonian, our next guest is an experienced YouTuber with over 1 million views, and that's not even on his own YouTube channel. His experience with Kubernetes, Rosa, hybrid cloud, and even EKS has accelerated his career. The one thing I need to get and learn from him is how to use a light board. I think I'm going to ask him for some behind the scenes quick tips. Our next guest is none other than Principal Developer Advocate for Kubernetes at AWS, Sai Vennam. Sai is going to give us behind the scenes look at some of his home office studio and setup, plus talk about some of the things that he's done for YouTubing. Now, before I bring Sai on, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify. Please join me in welcoming Principal Developer Advocate at AWS for Kubernetes, Sai Vennam, to the show. Sai, thanks for joining me, man.
Hey, John, happy to be here today. I'm super excited that I get to be a participant in your podcast today. The script is usually flipped. I'm the one interviewing people, so this is fun. I'm glad to be here, and just all I've prepped today is basically my phone, my water, and we're ready to go.
I actually had my script, and when I say my script, like the bullet points flipped on me. Normally I say, hey, listen, we're just going to talk about backstory. We're going to talk about your YouTubing, the light board behind you, by the way. We will get a live screen tour of his, studio setup. Don't worry, Sai's got it all ready and configured. And if you start to take over the show, I will not be offended at all. But this is a time for you to be relaxed and just enjoy the conversation and the show.
All right, I'm ready. Let's do it. And like John said, I've got I'm going to show off my studio in a bit here with my phone. The light board is turned on. I do this a lot for YouTube, just creating these enablement, engaging videos. So yeah, I'm ready to get into it when you are, John.
I think we are getting into it. So Sai, first of all, I always do this to all of my guests. I want a little backstory on you. Tell everybody listening, who is Sai Vennam? And by the way, I have to tell everyone that Sai and I met when I was at IBM. You were our SA, right? So right. I was like, yeah. You were on one of the calls, and I was talking to another one. It's like, oh, well, let's look him up on YouTube. I was like, oh, wow, he did a bunch of IBM stuff. And that's actually, we were supposed to do this on my birthday about a month ago. Plans changed, but I want to know more about Sai.
Yeah, speaking of birthdays, I actually just turned 30 this last Saturday.
All right. Well, happy birthday, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
I won't tell you what I turned.
Well, I can give a little quick backstory. I'm based in Austin, Texas, but I was actually born in India. I moved to America when I was, I think, 5 years old, just obviously with my parents. And I went to school in North Carolina, and I moved around a bunch for work. So I started in Research Triangle with IBM right out of school. I still think it's funny. I graduated, and I think a week later, I started working at IBM on their new cloud platform. At the time, it was Bluemix, now IBM Cloud. And as part of that role, I bumped around a lot between different types of jobs and responsibilities. I was a developer at the very beginning. I switched into developer advocacy. I did a little bit of product management, solutions architecture, before jumping back to developer advocacy, where I'm at today at AWS. And I've got to say, I've stayed at large companies for most of my career. And I think there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages for working at, large companies versus smaller companies. But I think I've had a pretty good experience so far and had the ability to try so many different roles. So I feel pretty blessed about that.
Wait a second. You couldn't get away from IBM. You were there, then you worked there, then you went to AWS, and you were the SA for IBM. Did they think it was all a natural fit?
Exactly. So when I left IBM, I ended up joining the partner solutions architecture team at AWS for IBM. That was my partner. And, I couldn't think of a better way. After spending 8 years at IBM, I couldn't think of a better way to find that next chapter of my career. Coming to AWS and continuing to work with IBM. And, that partner team has done so much great work in the last year and a half. I think pretty soon here, we're going to see a lot of IBM software coming on to AWS. And I just think it was so great because I brought that network that I had at IBM and I was able to leverage that to help AWS grow their partnership. It just felt like it was kismet.
Was tech or cloud always something you wanted to do? Was it like always ingrained in you, you enjoyed it, or was there something else and you just happened to stumble upon it?
That's a great question. I actually got into tech at such an early age. I think my dad was probably the first one that got me into it. He was managing Oracle databases back in the 90s.
Oh, you said the word Oracle, man. We'll bleep that out. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Got to do it. But that's the truth. And he had a computer at home. He got me started with QBasic, and I dabbled with it a bit, but didn't get too into programming. This was like second, third, fourth grade. But in middle school, I had one of those programming calculators, like a TI-83, TI-84. And I don't know, I was one of those kids that just could never pay attention in class. So when I had that calculator in front of me, I was just programming random games. I made Dance Dance Revolution using the little arrow keys on my calculator. I made Snake on the calculator. It was just fun little games that I would program in between my classes or sometimes during classes. I think that was my first intro into tech.
Nice. All right. So IBM, AWS. When you and I originally planned this, you indicated that you weren't going to be IBM's SA anymore. You were taking on a new role. Can we talk about that new role?
Absolutely. So right now I'm focused on Kubernetes and containers. And I think, for the few people out there that may recognize some of the videos that I've made on YouTube.
Well, wait a second. A few people out there. I'm going to pause you right just for that second. Let me read some stats to you because I have your page up. And by the way, I know how it is when somebody else indicates your stats. You're like, yeah, that's okay. These are some big numbers, by the way. Kubernetes explained. They're not in front of you. I know they're not. Do you want to know from 3 years ago? Do you want to know how many views you got?
All right, let's hear it.
428,000 views.
Wow. All right.
Okay. This was IBM. Okay. I got one more. Containers from the couch. I love that shit. That's pretty good. What is Rosa? By the way, that was actually one of my questions for you today. 2 months ago. Do you know how many views?
I'm guessing a little over 1,000, maybe.
3.2. So you're a little shy of some. Okay. One more. I'm gonna let you pick which one it is. Either hybrid cloud or containerization explained. Which one do you want?
Let's see the containerization one.
Oh, you picked a good one. 420,000 views. So don't say you dabbled a little bit. Don't minimize your efforts because we're going to talk about it in a second. Let's talk about the current work you do, and then we got to jump into your whole aspect of YouTubing and content creating and the lighting behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Kubernetes and containers, I feel like I hit this sweet spot. You mentioned that video was 3-4 years ago. I think it was 2019 that I put my first video out there. Don't get me wrong, I was the first one to make a video about Kubernetes in 2019, but that's actually when we saw that community really growing. And I'd love to also talk a little bit about creating engaging videos on YouTube because a lot of people try to say there's a recipe, there's a way to ensure success, but I think it's just about finding as many factors as you can to contribute to success. And I think I hit a sweet spot there, whether I knew it or not. Back in 2019, I think the first video I made was Kubernetes versus Docker. And when you say that, the first thing you think is, why are you even comparing the two things? It makes no sense. But people were searching that because at the time Docker was very popular and Kubernetes was still kind of growing, and it was an orchestrator that everyone was using, but it didn't necessarily have that level of adoption that it has today. And so I think I hit that sweet spot talking about containers, talking about Kubernetes, and that kind of contributed to why those videos kind of took off. And today I'm back into that role on the AWS developer advocacy team for Kubernetes. So focusing on EKS, focusing on Rosa, which is that video you just mentioned, OpenShift on AWS, but really all things containers on AWS, because I think as a developer advocate, and I think, John, you've done a bunch of videos on what exactly developer advocate is. And I think the best way I can explain it is we advocate for the developer. Yes, I work for AWS, but when I speak to a developer, I don't want to sit there and give them a marketing pitch. I want to understand their concerns, their needs, their pain points, and then present a solution that I think will fit them and their use case in the best possible way. And so I think that's what I do as an advocate. And now that I'm back in the containers and Kubernetes space, I'm getting to do what I love again, creating Lightboard videos, creating enablement, doing YouTube.
Well, I think you're doing an excellent job at it. I can see from your passion. As a developer advocate, here's what I think of, and speaking to so many of them, and I enjoy the role, is that a developer advocate, just thinking in just AWS terms, you're there for the developer on the customer side. And in fact, you're the person that says to AWS, no, 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 they don't want that. They're not going to use it that way, or they have an issue. We need to solve it this way. Or you say, hey, you know what? We have this solution. Why don't you try this? You're the person that's actually on the side of the developer or the customer. I want to use the word customer because it's more focused on the customer-oriented solution. But, and that's usually how I feel, is that you're trying your best to bring everybody together into one solution that it works. And whether you got to change something on AWS side or you got to change the mentality of the developer, it's just a collaboration.
Absolutely. And you know, there's a term shift that happened. I don't know exactly when, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where this role was actually considered developer evangelism for the longest time. And for better or worse, I'm actually really happy that we've moved away from that term, not as an entire industry, but especially as cloud providers. You know, when we look at cloud providers like AWS or my old company, IBM, we moved away from evangelism because it was less about preaching the gospel of your product and solution, and more about, you know, like what we just talked about, advocating for developer needs. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of businesses and startups and companies out there that need true evangelism, but I think at the end of the day, having it's a more level approach to talking about tech. It's you're meeting the developer where they are, rather than just saying, this is why you need to use my software.
I actually try to think of myself. And by the way, did you know my title was Chief Evangelist, right? And you were just like, I was just I had to put you on the spot.
No.
I can feel you blushing. No. But I feel myself doing exactly both.
Yeah.
I don't really, how I explain myself, and I try to, is like, I'm a cheerleader for my company, but I advocate on the side of the developer on how to use it technically and work with it or tailor it to their needs and provide them solutions. Like, all right, listen, if we can't do it, we either figure out, or we're not the solution for you, somebody else is. And that sometimes you have to say that because they'll come back to you if they feel that they can trust you.
Yeah, and if I can backpedal a little bit, 100%.
This is all staying in the recording.
As a cloud provider, you know, it's that's when we use the term advocate. I think that's
you're all good. No backpedaling at all. You're all good. Okay. How long you been at AWS?
Just over a year. So it's
just over a year.
Still very new to me. You know, like I said, I joined IBM right out of school and gave them 8 years and you know, grew my career from just a low-level developer, you know, not that there's anything wrong with it, but, you know, just working on things like the Java backend platform to, you know, leveling up a little bit more and more to kind of now what I do today is, you know, having the pleasure to talk about technology and that kind of thing. So, you know, I think 10 years in this career and a 10th of it now at AWS.
Nice. All right, let's talk about YouTube and your content creating. Now, I know this one said 3 years ago, you have 430,000 views off of it. Why did you create it? Like what empowered you to create it? I know it says IBM technology, but I'm sure either they said, hey, listen, Sai, go ahead and create this. And you're, you know, some people are like, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to be on YouTube, but why?
You know, I think this kind of goes back to one of the reasons why I moved away from development and into kind of more kind of speaking about technology instead of just writing it. A short stint in my career I spent in San Francisco. This was my stint at a startup, quote unquote. Actually, you can see the shirt right here. It's loopback.io. It was shepherded by a company called Strong Loop. It was a Node.js company focused on open source. And at the time, they got acquired by IBM, and I got the opportunity to go work with them as soon as the acquisition had happened. So I got to experience that kind of startup culture for about a year or so. But one of the things I noticed in SF, one of the things I've noticed looking at the community right now, the developer community, and just young people getting into careers, you look at TikTok and Instagram Reels and that kind of thing. One of the things you see a lot of people saying, never do more than what your job pays you for. Do the bare minimum. They will never respect you for doing more than that. And I think for a lot of people, maybe if you're unhappy with where you are in your career and you want to find some place that really respects you and helps you grow your career, I get it. But I see those as more like jobs. A job is something that gets you from point A to point B, lets you take advantage of your hobbies. But a career is one that you want to grow within. And so I think I kind of don't agree with those perspectives, because one of the things that got me to where I was today was to do my day job. And here's kind of where I kind of agree with them. It's do just enough to fulfill being a good employee at your day job. But then if you have any remaining time, say 2 hours out of the day, 3 hours out of the day, there's two things you can do. You can double down on your day job. You can say, I'm going to deliver one more work item this week. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to make my manager happy by doing one more thing that he asks. And the other thing you can do is focus on career growth. And that's finding ways to get yourself recognized, working on your skills, and just in general, working on things that make you happy. And I think that's where a lot of people, I think, tend to kind of lose perspective is don't just pour all of your time into that day job. Try to find something extra with your time. And I'll give a simple example. When I first was starting my career, I think I wasn't the very best developer out there, but I was fairly good. And so I would get my work items done fairly early. And so with the extra time, I was looking for other things to do within IBM. So there was this hackathon, this internal hackathon that they had to try out the new cloud platform that they were developing. I said, okay, let's enter with a couple of my teammates. And we spent, 3 hours, 4 hours a week working on this project for the hackathon. And this is pure extra. It didn't make my manager happy that we were working on it, but I thought, hey, look, this is something fun. I want to do it. We ended up winning that hackathon internally. And that, I think, is what jet set my career to where it is today. It's simple, but that one decision to start working on that hackathon project got me in front of some executives. That executive allowed me to test out this product, Loopback and Strong Loop internally. And then he said, Sai, should we acquire this company? I gave him my honest opinion. And then we ended up acquiring the company, and then ended up moving out to San Francisco. And then kind of back to your question, that's when I got into applying to local meetups and conferences, doing sessions, and realizing that I loved speaking about tech, not just writing it. And that's why I do what I do today. That's why I made that YouTube video, Kubernetes for Docker, and all the videos after that. I like speaking about tech, and I think there's a critical need for effective enablement in this community.
If I were to ask you, say maybe a couple of years ago, if you would be doing this, do you think you would be doing the same thing?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think.
But creating content. So 5 years ago, do you think you would be YouTubing and creating content?
If you asked me 5 years ago, if today I would still be creating YouTube content and videos and digital enablement, absolutely. Yes, because even 5 years ago, this was something I did in my spare time. If I had any extra time in the workday, sometimes even, push it into weekends, because I love this stuff. There's a lot about this that I enjoy doing, setting up the perfect lighting equipment, learning how to edit videos perfectly, getting a nice camera to get a good look for my camera, for my videos. I mean, this is all stuff that I enjoy doing. And then I combine that with, how it relates to work. And I find that this is kind of a perfect intersection. And so absolutely, I think if you asked me 5 years ago, I think, yes, I would still be doing it. But I would also imagine that I would grow as a leader as well, not just, creating content, but nurturing others as well within my company. And that's part of being in a big company. It's not just about being an individual contributor, but also about working with the network and other employees and potential new hires and helping them grow as well.
I think it's important to find a career that you get paid to do and enjoy. Have you ever been asked, do you really get paid to be social and to create videos?
You know,
Like, do you really get paid to do what you're doing? Like, I see about 30. I mean, I'll tell you a story afterwards, but I'm curious of what people are asking you on the videos and the content and the light board you're doing. Like, Sai, what work do you really do? I mean, you get paid to do this?
I get it all the time. And if we look at, I think my LinkedIn is probably the biggest kind of proof to this. If I look at the messages I'm getting, it's interns, it's new hires, it's college students, and they're asking, how are you doing that? Like what was your career progression that enabled you to get to where you are today? And, you know, I love getting on calls with them, reaching out to them and working with these people because I could see myself being there 8 years ago in that exact position and not understanding how to take my career to the next step. And so I think at this point, absolutely, I think this is something that people ask all the time. And I feel blessed that I get to do this. And yes, I do think I get paid now to be social and create enablement and create content and create YouTube videos. But it wasn't always like this. And that goes back to what I was saying. 5 years ago, I was a product manager and I was creating these videos in my spare time. And my manager didn't love that I made the videos, but he didn't hate it either because I was, like I said, I was hitting that day job minimum. I was doing well at managing my product. And so with that extra time, you know, of course, he's happy to let me kind of work on what I want to work on. And that actually is another thing, I think, having a manager that nurtures your career and growth instead of kind of trying to limit your potential. I think that's another thing I've been super blessed to have my entire career, both at IBM and AWS right now. It's to have a manager that kind of understands and nurtures that growth.
I was actually going to jump onto that question, and you touched on it, is that how important is it regardless of the location? Everybody looks at AWS, this huge company. Obviously, you're going to have the good and the bad managers and people as well. But how important is it to have a manager at AWS that says, you know what, Sai, you're a PSA, right? You were in the PSA org, correct? And you know how important was that you applied for the DA role, and they were like, your manager sees that, and they're like, dude, you got to do that. Let me get you there. That type of manager is like golden, where they don't want to keep you, they don't want to block you, they want to do that. How important is to have an advocate for you internally to go to other roles, knowing your potential for a company?
You know, that's critical. And this is something that, you know, not just my previous manager, but more so at IBM, I saw this big time, and I'm seeing it with even my current manager today. It's when you foster and nurture growth like this, I think I liken it to customer loyalty. You know, you can look at Amazon's approach to returns. You know, when they first launched Prime and you could just return whatever you wanted, people were like, how are they affording this? How can they do this? And I think it's one of those things where it's about loyalty. It's about, you know, understanding that you're establishing some sort of trust and relationship with the customer, and in this case, your employee. And so, yes, I'm moving away from that particular team, but now I'm still happy to talk about technology from that team. So that Rosa video, for example, is about Red Hat OpenShift on AWS, and obviously Red Hat being a part of IBM, it's very close to that kind of brand. Now I'm happy to talk about that technology, and now I still continue to work with that team, even though I'm on a completely separate part of the organization. I'm able to kind of still interact with them, have that healthy relationship. Still work with them to kind of grow enablement for their team from my perspective. So I think that's probably the biggest aspect of, you know, maintain those good relationships and, you know, foster connections that would have been lost otherwise. And then the other thing, I recommend people to that team again. So people in my network, I feel good about saying, look, this is a great team to apply to. Here's our job listings, apply. And, you know, I think without having that kind of a manager, you're not going to get that kind of loyalty and growth.
Nope, I agree with you. So, Sai, you mind if we switch gears a little bit? Because I'm curious of your studio setup. Being a content creator myself, I want to see it. We were actually planning maybe trying to do this on site back in May, but we're going to switch it up. We're going to we're going to pull up Zoom here on the phone. We're going to do a virtual tour or whatever you want to call it. I want to see your setup. I want to show everybody what you've got. Yay, look, I can wave to myself on the camera, around the camera.
All right.
Sweet.
So here we've got my little setup. So I'll show the light board in a minute, but very quickly, maybe I should start with what am I looking at here? And this is my office. I've got it's a little obnoxious. It's a 49-inch ultra-wide monitor, but
wait. You say that's obnoxious. What do you think I'm looking at right here?
Is that the same thing?
49-inch monitor, man.
There you go. It's a game changer. And honestly, I can't even put into words what it looks like in real life because it kind of curves to match.
It's funny how you got to move the phone back and forth to capture it all.
But I wanted to show an example of why this is so cool. So I do all my own editing. So here's a Premiere Pro. And people ask, why not a 2-monitor setup? Why not a 3-monitor setup? Why should I do like ultra wide? And this is exactly why. Look at that screen real estate. There's no seam in the middle. You can edit and look at so much more at once. And when you're not editing, even you can just pull up multiple windows without having that kind of seam right in the middle or 3-camera setup, whatever it might be.
All right, before you go to the next piece, here's a question with the 49-inch. And this is the only issue that I have is a slide share or presentation with notes. Do you have the notes here in front of you on your laptop, or how do you do it?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So I do have the notes here, but when I want to screen share, I'll actually load it on my laptop. So, that's that fixed 16:9 resolution. I can share here and continue to kind of look up there with where I have my other windows open. So that's kind of how I get around the screen sharing issue.
I got an iPad that I put right here with the notes. I'll have it right here in front of me connected, and I'll use like the sidecar feature.
Nice. There you go. Yeah, the continuity stuff has been really cool.
Yes. The extra add-on. All right. What kind of camera you got there? Canon?
So we got an EOS M50 from Canon, just a pretty simple crop sensor, SLR, mirrorless SLR camera. Pretty good for my purposes for the webcam. But I think the cool piece here is I've actually mounted it to my monitor. And so my light board, so we'll get to that next, is actually directly across from my webcam. And so it's multifunctional here. I can use it for my webcam and also for the light board itself. And so I'll quickly show what this kind of studio looks like. So usually this whole thing is on wheels, by the way. It's a sit-stand desk with the light board on it. So I need to move it.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
The background is kind of like a velvet black material, so it doesn't reflect any light, which is really critical because for my light board videos, you gotta have a completely black background. Let's see. So here's the light board. A lot of people are wondering, do you write backwards?
I was actually, all right, I'm being totally geeked out right now. I want to know because I'm thinking, how do I do this?
So I am writing completely normal. So I'm writing hello world. And you can see from your perspective, from the computer, it looks backwards. But here's the trick. We just flip it and
flip the screen. Yep.
And so you'll notice that my wedding band is on the wrong hand. My hair is flipped the other way. And I can never wear a t-shirt with the logo on it.
Oh, tips of the trade. Oh man, you mean I can't wear my logo t-shirt? Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. Tons of lighting equipment here, face lights. This is an LED that comes all the way
now.
around.
Did that lighting come with it, or did you put it on for the light board?
This actually came with it.
Okay.
Shout out to Revolution Light Boards. I'm not sponsored, by the way, but
if you want to sponsor this video, reach out to me.
But yeah, they create these really slick setups. You can see it right here, Revolution.
Oh, there we go.
Everything is set up here, the dimmers and everything. You can do it at home. Don't get me wrong. This is definitely 100% something you can build at home.
Yeah.
But it's not going to come as clean.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll point out here, my window is very, very bright. Really cool blackout solution here with Velcro.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
pretty easy way to just black out an entire
Black
window.
it out.
Yeah, it's pretty slick.
Actually, that is really cool. Hold on a second. I gotta take a note on that. I've got one, and depending on the time of the day, if it's before 2 o'clock, it's a little bright, comes into my office, even though I put the shades down, you might see it. Well, you can't see it because I put on this light behind me, but that is nice. Wait, what did you get to cover it?
So it's a company called Blackout Easy, but really you can just go to Home Depot, get some vinyl, cut it to the right size,
Yeah.
stick some Velcro on it. It's super slick, and something I really struggled with for a long time, how to do a perfect blackout, because I don't have a dedicated studio. It's
Yeah,
funny
me
story.
either.
Yeah, at IBM, we had a dedicated studio to record videos, and then the pandemic hit, and I couldn't make the Lightboard videos anymore. And so we were kind of frantically figuring out, how do we do this? How do we find a place to do this? Because we can't get the cameraman and myself and everyone into a smaller space together. So we brought the whole studio to my house, and I think that was the first time I had to turn my guest room into like a dedicated studio. My wife, girlfriend at the time, wasn't too happy about it, but worked out.
But yeah, did you just get married, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
just got
that's
married in May. Yeah,
right
fifth year for me.
before. Yeah, that's right. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, we did a destination wedding in Cancun. Again, not because we love Cancun. Don't get me wrong, we love Mexico, but we have a lot of family coming from out of town, and with the COVID policies for coming to United States, super restrictive. We didn't know what it would be like a year and a half ago, so we said, look, let's just do it out of the country, and
Yep.
so we know that our friends and family from out of the country can come without issue.
Gotcha. So what do you think about the whole imposter syndrome? Because does it only apply to AWS? Because when I was at AWS, it probably 2 months in, I started feeling it like, why did they pick me of all people? Now people really know why they did pick. No, I'm just kidding. Like why they got rid. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway.
This is one I struggle with, and I think it doesn't matter where you are in your career. Imposter syndrome is going to be something that plagues a lot of people, and I think it's one of those things that there's a lot of different techniques to handle it. But maybe I can share some of the things that have worked for me when I start to feel like a little bit like an imposter. One of the things is to take a look at where you are today and where you've come from, and all the different steps you've made in your life, whether it's the tests you've passed and the schools you went to, and getting a degree or passing a boot camp or whatever it was, all the steps that you took in your career. Just realize that it didn't happen by dumbfound luck. You didn't get an offer because you tricked your interviewer. You didn't. All of these things are not random or luck based. And I think a lot of people lose that scope because they'll have one conversation, maybe with their manager or with a teammate, where they felt like their teammate was contributing more to a conversation or happened to know more than they did about something. And you get in your head and you're like, I don't belong here. Obviously he belongs here and knows more than me, any of those kind of situations, And I think one of the things that really helps me is to realize, look, you're here where you are here today, not by some dumb luck, but because you deserve to be here. And when you can kind of admit that and accept that, that's when you can start realizing, here's what I need to do to get even better, to get to the next stage of my career. I'd say that's one. And one other thing is it's letting go of perfectionism. This is one of the things that, as you grow in your career, you start to realize not everyone's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. And if you're always chasing perfectionism, the unfortunate effect is that you don't actually end up getting anything done. If you're always wanting to do something perfectly, then the activation energy to start doing that thing becomes too high, and then you'll end up not doing it at all. And there's this video floating out there on YouTube with me in there from like 2013. And it was the first time I got in front of a film crew to record a tutorial video. and I think you can literally see sweat dripping off my forehead.
All right. You know, we are going to find the video. I'll put the link in the description below. All right. Share a little more.
I was so nervous. I got up there. We had to do like 15 different takes, even though I had literally done that demo 100 times before. And now I can get in front of a light board and record a single take 10-minute video on my first try. Sometimes I'm not happy with it, I'll redo it. But it's one of those things where if it's a skill that you can work on and work on and work on, you're going to get better at it. And that's one of the things that got me into enablement in the first place, because I loved kind of teaching people and doing enablement and creating videos, but I wasn't necessarily the best at it. And so I worked on it and I feel like I got better. But one of the biggest things that tripped me up in the beginning was I would mispronounce a word. And, you know, English wasn't my first language. So a lot of times I would mess up saying something and I'd be like, crap, got to do a cut and start all over from the beginning. And I'd be there 3 hours later because I fumbled one little word. And I think one of the things was, you know, just who cares? If you made a mistake, get past it, keep recording. 99% of people aren't even going to notice. And I think it's that letting go of perfectionism that helped me kind of go to that next stage with, you know, these kinds of videos and doing this podcast with you and, you know, creating light boards and that kind of thing.
No, that's one of the things it really resonates with me is that I look at a couple of the videos that I have done and they're still on my YouTube channel. So if you want to laugh, head on over and take a look, because some of them I've done, I look at them, I'm like, wow, the video quality sucks. Oh my God. I probably recorded a couple, I don't know, 10, 15 times. And we're doing this recording once and only once, folks. We're not doing a double take, and it is what it is and how it works. It's because it's going to come across natural. It's going to cross as a conversation. If we mess up, it's going to be part of it, or it's going to be part of the blooper reel.
Yeah. And John, one of the things that when I was just watching a few of your videos on YouTube, just to kind of get ready for this podcast, see what other people have talked about. And I was getting a little jealous myself. I felt the imposter syndrome. I was like, John is amazing at this. I wish I had that kind of energy when I interviewed my guests. I wish I had that kind of cool background and the setup. And you know, you've got the great voice and everything for all of this, and I'm starting to feel that myself a little bit. And I think I think that goes back to that imposter syndrome where, you know, everyone has their strengths and like what they're good at. And John, I think you're quite fantastic at
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think making your guests feel comfortable and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm jealous. But
don't be, man. Actually, it was an honor for me to ask you to come on. I'm like, for you to accept to come on to the show, I was like, Sai, what do you think about coming on to my shows? And you were like, yeah, let's do it. So, and I'm glad you said yes. And thank you so much for all of the compliments you just gave me. I feel the imposter syndrome myself. Like people are like, you're awesome at it or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm still, yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I come on and I'm just like, and it's funny. I had a guest one time where we were just talking normally in the beginning. I'm like, all right, you ready? I'm going to click record. And all of a sudden my energy level went from 0 to 110. He's like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do the energy as well as you, but this is awesome. I'm like, I don't know how that happens, but it just happens.
Yeah, no, it's infectious, man. The energy is infectious, and I think if you put that energy out, you're gonna get it back as well. But that switch that you mentioned, that flip of the switch, I get the same thing. It's the craziest. Like before I go up on stage to do a session, I'm sitting there, I'm getting stuck on what were my bullet points again? What was I going to talk about? Wait, is that demo really going to work if I do this? And I freak out in last minute.
But you go on and it all works, right?
Yeah, and then you get up on stage and that switch flips, and you're just you hit that mood, and you're doing less ums and uhs, and you've got the demo lined up, and you're not worried about if it's going to break or not, and you're just going with the flow. And I think that's one of those things that's really critical, is to turn off that part of your brain that's kind of overthinking these things and just get into it.
How many improv ones do you do? Like recordings, some quick ones, or all yours long, or you do some short ones?
I would really love to start getting into some of the shorter ones. My coworker Justin Garrison, might have seen him on Containers on the Couch, creates these hilarious shorts, which are basically 1 minute long videos that go over really complex topics like horizontal pod
Wait,
scalers and Kubernetes. But he
wait a
just breaks
second.
them down into
Yes.
one. Have you seen the
Wait,
one with the
he's your
big?
coworker? Oh,
Yeah,
dude, I love his videos.
yeah,
I inspire to create some like him because he did storage, but he used buckets,
yep.
right? Or
Yep.
whatever it is. Yes.
Yes, yeah. So I think for local volume provisioners or volume provisioners, he used buckets. For horizontal pod autoscalers, he had like a little cup with a hole in it, and then poured water into it. And it was just such a great explanation of kind of memory usage and
Uh-huh.
autoscaling. And I love his style, and I think this is one of those things where, as a community of advocates and evangelists, I think we can learn from each other and these new types of teaching and learning. John, like I said, with this Lightboard video setup I've got here, I'm happy to have you come here anytime, check it out yourself, and maybe
Ooh.
even make a video yourself.
Yo, behind the scenes. You heard it here, folks. We're gonna do a behind the scenes going out to Texas. We're gonna have some tacos.
Oh, hell yeah.
I love the tacos out there. We definitely got to be. Hey, can you put a word in for me with Justin? I'd love to have him on the show and how he does some of this and comes up with these some ideas because I want to do the same thing. This is pretty cool, but got to do behind the scenes as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you had asked me how I prep for one of these things. If I do improv or do I prep?
Yes.
Honest with you, there's a ton of prep that goes into those Lightboard videos. It's there's good and the ugly of it. The good is that I get to learn about this completely cool technology and absorb. I generally absorb like 8 to 10 hours of reading material, videos, or whatever, and I have to condense it down into 10 minutes. And I think that's the cool part, is the fact that I get to learn about all these technologies. But I guess the ugly is it takes away from, it takes a lot of time, and it takes away from being able to meet the minimum requirement for your day job. And so when I was a product manager, this was a constant struggle. It was like, okay, I'm spending all my time doing product management, and then whenever I can have some extra time, I'll prep for a Lightboard video. But now as a DA, I think it's great that this is just something I can do 24/7, always learning about new technologies and creating these videos, these Lightboard videos. And it's a great way to learn myself. I think one of the videos that I made for back when I was at IBM was for blockchain. I had no idea how blockchain worked. And I was interested in crypto and all of that, but it was a great opportunity for me to go out there and read just literally thousands and thousands of papers and videos out there on blockchain, condense it down into a 10-minute video, and be able to put my spin on it. And I think people like that.
I agree with you. Two more questions before we wrap things up. One, are you going to be at any of the other events coming up, like Remars summits or anything?
Right now, I'm only planning to be at Open Source Summit in Austin, and then KubeCon Detroit, reInvent. But I'm open to going to more events. John, let me know, because
I'm at
I would
Remars.
love to
By the
come
way,
out.
I'm just saying that out there. You want to do some improv stuff? I will literally slap a camera on the table. We will do a live 5 to 10 minute. Well, not live. It'll be a quick recording and updated recording on the event and what's going on. I will be in the New York Summit. I'm not sure where else I'm going yet because it's hard to plan somewhere. I will be at reInvent, so plan to meet up there as well.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Got to do that before, and we definitely have to plan that behind the scenes before any of that stuff happens.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, my last thing is for somebody who wants to get involved and to do this or get started creating content, can you give them a tip? What should they do?
Yeah, and I touched on this a little bit, but the other way to look at it, you can always spend that additional time you have every day. Let's say you're doing a good job at your day job and you're hitting that mark. You can always spend your extra time doing even better. But I think one of the things that I found that's always worked for me is to focus on things that help you. I think it's three things: get recognition, because I think that's one of the most important things. It's your manager might be recognizing what you do, but unless you're getting recognition kind of from leadership and across teams, I think some of your impact can be a little limited. Number two, I think growing your skills, because a lot of times as developers and being new into this industry, you can get stuck in your tiny piece of the world. And it's going to be critical because very few people I know have stayed in the same job for over, even 2-3 years. And even back in the day, when people stayed in roles for longer, 5-10 years, you're going to have to make a switch at some point. So being able to grow your skills is going to be critical. So anytime you have that extra time, I think take advantage of it. And the last thing I'll say is, to be able to do something like this, it's all about getting out of your comfort zone. Like I said, there's a video out there of me being completely awkward on camera, one of my first YouTube videos ever. And I didn't give up at that point. I said, look, this is something that I want to get better at. And, I kept focusing on it. And, I still think there's a lot of room for me to grow. But I think this is one of the things, if you get yourself out of that comfort zone, I think that really lets you grow.
Sorry, I'm going to add on to your number 3 is that video that you're thinking about doing, do it, put it out there and get better at it. Just keep adding on to the next one. Learn one new trick, one new trait. That's that whole thing that Sai's talking about is, develop yourself afterwards. Take that extra time. I think if you want to put content out there, you just need to do it. And then you just tailor and add on to it.
Absolutely.
All right, Sai, thank you so much for joining me in the show. I really appreciate it. This has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, this flew by, honestly.
I see, and that's how they're supposed to, because it's just a chat. We're just hanging out like we're in the same room, but shortly, maybe we will.
Appreciate it, John. This has been awesome. And again, everything I said about you just being an amazing host. And honestly, I feel so comfortable here. I feel like we're best buds now. I can't wait to have you over in my house. You can meet my dogs, meet my wife, that feels weird to say. My wife.
There you go. It would be definitely an honor to come over, see your setup. Maybe we'll do a live recording or a live post right there. We'll do some awesome stuff. Everybody, Sai Vennam, principal developer advocate at AWS for Kubernetes. My name's John Myer, your host. Thanks for joining. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify, because guess what? We're out of here.